resume. So the first thing that we really suggest is doing sort of capture the flag competitions, or CCDC, which is the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. So the one that we're doing soon is National Cyber League. So you guys will see on the Discord that we talk a lot about that. And you can still register until I think October 12th. And then there's also free capture the flags happening all the time. And since like everything's online nowadays, there's like tons that you can do, because now it's like anybody from anywhere can do it instead of just if you're in the area. So I think the website's called CTF Time, but it's like a popular platform for people to set up capture the flag competitions. So if you look on there, you'll see just tons and tons, and I'll put that link in the chat later. If you are also, so I'm kind of doing this like purely security sort of jobs, but if you're also interested in software development, hackathons are also good to improve your resume. So then moving on to specific skills you can do to learn. Python is one of the biggest things I saw being asked for in job listings. That's super big because obviously you can write things in Python a lot faster than in C a lot of the times for scripting and stuff. Kali Linux is like an operating system with tons of security tools built in. So if you get a lot of practice using that, that's another thing that looks good on your resume. Wireshark, that's another good thing. It's for like analyzing network traffic. And then there's lots of other topics you can go into just based off of what you're interested in. So if you're into like cryptography, that's something you can look into, or forensics. There's tons of different options. And also like Kali and Wireshark, these are things you're going to use in capture the flag competitions. So if you do capture the flag competitions, you're going to by proxy learn all of these other things. Other options are work experience. Like a lot of people have to work during school, but you can try to find jobs that kind of highlight what you're looking for after school. So like if you work with, I can't remember what it's called, the on-campus IT, like the help desk, or maybe you can find a lab at Discovery Park that's kind of related. There's also the peer mentorship jobs, and then obviously internships are huge. Like I did an internship this summer, and before that I'd hardly get any messages from recruiters. And then after my internship, I get messaged all the time about, hey, do you have 5 minutes to talk about XYZ? So trying to find an internship for your junior year is really big. And then certifications. So certifications can be really expensive, so it's not super necessary. And if you go into contracting, a lot of companies will pay for these certifications because, you know, they want their employees to have these to show to their clients, like, look, our people are qualified. So it's not super necessary, but it is kind of like a thing that says you definitely know what you're doing because this piece of paper says you do. And there's other options like the UNT certificate. Sorry, my dog squeaks a lot. The UNT certificate for security, that's if you're already a computer science major, it doesn't add any extra classes, but it kind of shows that you're dedicated to security basically. And then occasionally things will come up that are free, like Autopsy is a free forensics software, and they made their training program free for like a month at the beginning of COVID. So I did that, but like sometimes things like that will come up where you can just get the certification and put it on your resume or your LinkedIn or whatever. And then some more options are getting involved on campus. So like being part of this club, you can put that on your resume, and I'll show you guys what mine looked like, what I had written like for this club, and then other things I was involved in. volunteer organizations, sports, whatever. So these are more things. That's not as, I mean, it depends who's looking at your resume, but I think like the hard skills are more valuable, but this is still valuable because it shows like you have people skills, especially if you're in a leadership position in one of the organizations. And then projects. So projects are like a huge highlight of a software development resume. So that is something that you should really look into if that's the sort of internship or job you're looking for. And then still, it's also good for more security type of jobs. Um, but it's, I think like for me, I put the NCL and the other capture the flag stuff higher than the projects on my resume, just because I thought it was kind of more applicable to the type of internship I was looking for. And then another thing is like learning a second language and then studying abroad too. So there's a list of critical languages for Americans. And at UNT, we have a few of those. Russian, Chinese, Arabic, Japanese is also on there, but I don't know if that's um, as applicable to security. Um, I think that's more like a business kind of thing. Other languages would be something like Farsi or Korean are also popular. And you also have to think about what type of security you're trying to do. So if you're trying to do penetration testing, like in like a corporate kind of setting, this isn't gonna be super like important because you're going to be working with American companies. All their stuff is written in English. But if you're interested in like incident response or digital forensics or working with the government, something like that, something more like, then yes, definitely a language is a good idea. And I just put these links on here. These are a couple programs for study abroad. The State Department one is for critical languages only, and it's basically a free summer study abroad. They pay for your flights, they pay for pretty much everything, maybe not food, but everything. And then the Boren Award is also for critical languages, and that's like $8,000 towards your study abroad in the summer. So those are just some things to look into. And then I'll pause for a second if anybody has other ideas of things that you can do to build your resume. Okay. And then next we're going to talk about actually creating your resume. So the resume format, you're going to want to stick to one page. Generally, a recruiter is looking at your resume for like seconds. So having multiple pages kind of hides the important stuff that you want to show them. Margins, 1/2 inch to 1 inch. If you don't have work experience, those skills and projects and like going to UNT, those are all going to be highlighted on your resume. Generally, you're not supposed to say I on a resume, and you want the font 10 to 12. And then when you list experiences, you want the newest thing on top and then go back in time as you go down the page. So next, we'll look at some example resumes. I'm just going to show you guys mine. And then before we look at them, this is another thing you should be doing every time you apply. It's like if you're applying the security jobs, but you're also applying the software jobs, your security resume is not going to be very appealing to somebody who's looking for a software developer. So you want to make different versions of resumes to match what you're applying to. So I will show you mine. I think I have to stop sharing and then reshare. Okay, so here's mine. At the top, we just have my name, address, phone number, email, and then as we go down, I put a summary statement. This was before I did my internship, so I didn't have a ton of stuff to put on. So just to state like why I'm giving them this resume and what I'm looking for. And then next I put my education. You want to put when you're going to graduate so they know like internship, full-time job, what you're looking for, where it is. If you have minors, put it on there, and then your GPA. And then if you did study abroad, you can put where you studied too. And then next up is the skills. So I listed my skills out here. And then this was silly. I was like not confident in my Python, but I knew like every job listing wanted Python. So I was like, I need to have it on there, but I'm nervous about it. I should have just put it in experience with because it was fine. But yeah, just having all your skills somewhere real visible helps. And then this is where all the competitions come into play. A lot of people actually don't know about capture the flags, so I think it's a good idea to list out what sort of things you did in them, because in a lot of my interviews, they would be like, what is a capture the flag? So then you have to be able to explain, but also like if you're not there to explain and they're looking at your resume, you want them to see like, oh, she did cryptography and password cracking and network traffic analysis. Because just saying capture the flag, they're gonna be like, I don't know what that is. You can list your courses if you don't have experience or you just want to highlight your courses. I tried to put like the more relevant ones towards the beginning of the list because I figured they weren't going to read the whole list. And then obviously you can put less if you have more experience. And then I also had a project on there for my software engineering class. A lot of recruiters really like to hear about the projects. So those are really good to put on, especially if it was something where you like had a really nice finished product like a graphical interface and all that. And then the clubs and the awards, just kind of running through like what you did in the club. You were like, I don't know, I was outreach director. So you put that on there and kind of what you did in each one. My awards aren't really separate because all of my awards were in clubs. But, and then also, like, if you have something measurable to say, like, you know, I plan service projects for 1,350 students. That's like, shows them like the scale of what you did versus just saying, I coordinated service projects for students that they have no idea like what sort of scale you were working on. And then I will stop sharing. I think Laura has more resumes to share with you guys.
Thanks, Emma. Hey, your resume looks pretty darn good.
Thank you.
So I'm going to bring up a resume sample for computer science. I'm going to share the screen here. All right, can everybody see that? It says Nita job at the top.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go through this pretty quick. As you saw Emma's resume, it's pretty darn good. So you have a really good one. You've got a lot of good substance in there, so I like that a lot. So one of the things I would probably add with your contact information is a LinkedIn URL. Hopefully everybody's got a LinkedIn account. I hope. Okay, if you don't, and you have a GitHub account, you can put that account URL as well. Either or both. All right, so one of the sections I would recommend at the top of a resume is a professional profile, or you can also term it career profile. This is completely optional. We had Google out about a year ago and we showed this to them. They said, we don't even look at the professional profile, they go straight for the education. But I like it because it's a really good introduction to who's ever reading your resume. In about 3 sentences, they can figure out your status. You are a student at UNT, you're studying computer science and or cyber, and you're about to graduate in whatever year. The second sentence, I would add in there what kind of internship and or job you are seeking. If you know the company's name, put that in there. And like Emma said, you want to change up your resume every time you apply for a job. You only have to revise it. You don't have to change everything. There's key components to change because of the ATS, the applicant tracking system. Hopefully everybody's heard of this before. If not, it's kind of a, no, what? This is kind of a big mystery in the whole job hire thing. So it's software that most companies use, and what they're doing is trying to reduce the amount of resumes they have to read. So the way they do this is they use keywords. So if you've got a job announcement, it's going to have keywords in there, those technical skills they are looking for. Your resume is also going to have some keywords. So it's bumping them against each other and it's finding that match rate. If it's too low, you won't get a response from the employer. If it's high enough, they're going to call you for an interview. There's some things that ATS cannot read. If you've got a very fancy resume, if you've got colors and pictures and, you know, crazy logos, it's not going to read that. It's very good at reading text, and that's it. It's very simple software. You can get it for a couple hundred, couple $1,000s, and it just reads text. So if you've got a creative resume, you can go ahead and have that, but put that on your LinkedIn account and or like email it to somebody or hand it to somebody, a printed copy. But have a plain resume so it's going to make it through the ATS. And Emma's right. When a recruiter does get your resume, they really have like 10 seconds to read it. So you want to put all the good stuff the top half of that page. Okay, so the third sentence on professional profile, you can always add what kind of skills you have, whether they're technical and soft skills. What do you bring to that internship and or job? All right, I always recommend putting the education section toward the top so they can see. Put UNT, your major, and all of the engineering ones are ABET accredited, even the biomedical, which is awesome. And then put your expected grad date over on the right-hand side. And I would be consistent with the dates, just put them all on the right-hand side so they're easy to pick out. Because whoever's reading your resume, they're scanning, and you want this kind of information to stand out. Along with the GPA, I would put it underneath the date. You can put a minor as well. And then relevant coursework, I would probably limit it from 1 to 2 lines and probably no more. And then the technical skills section. I've got it broken down into categories. Well, you see programming languages. And what you can do with that is you can actually put a rating on there. Beginner, intermediate, advanced. The other categories, software, hardware, operating systems, kind of put whatever category fits your skills. It's a lot easier for the recruiter to read in categories. It's easier for them to scan. And most of your keywords are probably going to be in the section. Any questions right now?
I see that you're using a font size of 6. Would you recommend something around that size for having a lot of data for a resume like ours?
Why it's showing 6? It's actually 11.
Oh, my bad. Must have been the spacing.
Yeah, it was probably, yeah, it's 11. So I would use either 11 or 12. And stay away from New Roman, Times New Roman, that's overused. Tahoma, Calibri, Cambria, Arial, those are some really good fonts to use. All right, just like similar to what Emma has on her resume, she's got projects. This one happens to be, I believe, I want to say it's a senior design or one in the junior year. So it's good to put projects on there. And just like Emma has on her, she's got, you know, you can put hackathons, coding, if you're on GitHub doing projects or anything like that, let them know that is what you're doing. Because if they see you doing this on your own time, that's called a passion. Okay, so I have a section in there for employment experience. I would, if you've got an internship, I would keep that in a separate section as well because employers are looking for that. And then leadership and professional organizations as well. Awards and scholarships, that's optional if you want to put that on there. And if you have any room at the bottom of your resume, you can go ahead and put hobbies. Again, if they see hobbies that are more connected to your major, that's called a passion. So I also have some more information. What I'm going to do is put this Word document in the chat so you have it. I've got a website that's going to help you with that ATS. It's called jobscan.co, and it's a really good website, and you can get a free account. And what it does is you copy and paste your resume and that job posting, and it's going to show you the keyword match rate. It's going to identify all the keywords in that posting so you can grab those and kind of sprinkle them into your resume. So it's going to bump up your percentage. And that increases your chances of getting your resume pulled out of the pile so a human being can actually read it. All right. And there's just some tips at the bottom for resume bullets. Emma, I saw in your resume, and I heard you say that add some scale to it. So that also means like money amounts, numbers, percentages, any kind of time factors or volume. And that's going to help your bullets because people tend to remember numbers. Those are details. So if you can, put those in those bullets. And also another thing about soft skills or people skills, if you can demonstrate through your bullets, those are more effective than saying, you know, I'm a really great communicator or I'm a really great leader, because those put a story behind your superpowers. Okay, so that is the sample I have. Are there any questions about resumes? So one of those common questions I get is, how long should my resume be? Normally everybody says 1 page, and for the most part that's true. Employers don't really want to read. And so the rule of thumb is 1 page of a resume is up to 10 years of experience. So if you're working, maybe you're working on a doctorate, you can go ahead and have 2 pages, but try to stick to 1 page if you can. Okay. No questions? Comments? Nothing?
Why would you say that it's beneficial to have the GitHub and the LinkedIn on y'all's like the resume?
Because if you've got GitHub, they kind of know that you're a little bit more serious and that you know about that. So I would have both. With this whole COVID thing, there's so many people out of work that people are looking for jobs everywhere. And recruiters have been just absolutely overwhelmed with all the resumes they're getting. So what they're doing with LinkedIn anyway, is they're searching through profiles to find applicants now. We actually had a student about 4 to 6 weeks ago told us he didn't even have to apply for his job. A recruiter found him through LinkedIn, through his profile, because he had all the keywords on LinkedIn. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it sure does. Thank you.
So let me go to the chat and I'm gonna copy and paste. All right, of course I'm getting a network disconnect. That's great. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna email this to Emma. And I will let you send it out later because apparently the network here is not working. Yay, apartments. Okay, anybody else have any questions, concerns, comments, feedback? I have resume samples for almost every other engineering discipline as well. Computer engineering, information technology. I do need to get one for cyber though.
Where can we access them?
You can email me and I will get you copies.
Thanks.
So if there are any cyber instructors out there that would love to help me draft a resume, I'd be very grateful and very appreciative.
Actually, what you had for computer science is pretty significantly close to the cyber.
Okay, fantastic. Excellent. That is very good to hear. Okay, anything else on resumes? Are we good? Yeah, definitely the certifications. Okay. I guess I'll send it back to Emma.
There was one question about if you want to put work experience, you should definitely typically put work experience. I personally didn't put mine because I was like a lifeguard and a swim instructor, and I felt like my clubs at UNT were more like impressive. And then when I'd fill out the application, I would write those down separately just because I didn't want to waste time on like swim instructor on my resume.
Some people will say that it's good to put your jobs in there no matter what it was because it shows a work history, but you have a lot of great information on there and I would stick with that. So I wouldn't even bother putting the other jobs in there. That you have the Russian language experience. I think that was great. I think you've got so much great experience on your resume, so I would stick to that.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to how to prepare for interviews. So
Can I interrupt? This is Dr. Thompson. I had similar stuff to what you guys had, but I wanted a couple more. I don't know if you're going to give me time later or whatever, but I have some resume pieces as well, information I would like to share.
Oh, you can definitely share those now.
Okay. Can you make me a co-host so I can share? Or unless I can share automatically. Can I share? Nope.
Okay, I think you can now.
Okay. I'm going to share what I have. Let's see. All right. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
All right. So it's not. I didn't make a sample, an example resume, but I did want to put some information here, and I think Laura and you, Emma, touched on a lot of these. So I mean, really good. So you're right. I have several things that you have to put on for the resume. It needs to be properly formatted, effective, and so forth, but keep it simple. And I think that's for the ATS database, right? You really don't need your street address anymore, but your name, you know, a lot of times they look for location-wise as well. Email, if you have a weird email, don't make it unprofessional. It should have your name or something like that, or create one on Gmail. And as you guys mentioned, include your LinkedIn profile, GitHub profile. A lot of times when they're doing research on you, they're going to try to find out what you, some history that you have. So that's pretty important on there to be able to have that. The second one was the summary or professional skills. These are soft skills, what you're trying to do, any technical skills, just a quick summary of your skills in general. Don't list things like hard work or quick learner and so forth. You want to basically get it, any of these skills, you want to write something that demonstrates those qualities, not just list them, I'm a hard worker. So show why, or for example, in that example I have, how can you show you're an effective leader and have good communication skills? Well, I'm a team leader for blah, 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 and so forth. As students, so this is really important. And I think when you are a student, your education is your work, and that should be at the top. I always feel it has to be at the top. Once you graduate and get a full-time job, that changes. But as a student or about to graduate, your education should be the first and foremost. You should list the information on there, major, minors, graduation date, and if your GPA is 3.0 or higher, list it. If it's not, don't list it. Any accomplishments and so forth. I also put, and I think Laura, you had this on there as well, relevant coursework, but actually include some of the projects, some of the major projects you guys have worked on in your upper level classes. So for your software engineering, your capstone or systems programming, you know, computer security courses, put some of the major ones and focus on the technical pieces, not the functionality. So the easy example I have for my students in 1030, don't say I created a battleship game. Well, how did you create it? With dynamic data structures, pointers, two-dimensional arrays, this kind of things. Focus on the technical pieces there. Let's see. Also, UNT, so for security, UNT is designated as a National Center for Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense Education. This is a huge plus for you guys to include this in your resume. Because this means that we follow the NSA and the DHS criteria for what we're teaching in terms of security. And so when they see this, they'll say, hey, they know what they're doing because they're following that criteria. That's really important for those that are looking to get the security certificate and so forth. So that's part of it, and UNT include that. So again, Laura had all this stuff as well. Technical proficiencies, you need to list all of them: platforms, systems, databases, any networks, languages, software, tools that you're using. And then obviously for security, there's obviously a lot of certificates that are available. And again, we do have the cybersecurity certificate as well. I would list that as well, even if it's double dipping right there. You have it right there and right there. After that, I would list current and past employment, even if it's a lifeguard or whatever. And again, as Laura said, it shows work history, but it also shows that you're employable, have a good work ethic, and coachable, and have sustaining. So for example, when I was in high school and college, I worked at a grocery store all through high school and college. I definitely put that on there because it showed that I was consistent. So that's really important. And if you have any internships or related work experience, definitely highlight that and go into more detail. And the other thing, so this has to do, this next section has to do really with what sets you apart from other people. So volunteering does help build your experience, especially as you're, don't have a lot of experience yet. It also makes you look like a good person and a good citizen. So you can also seek out nonprofits or churches that have computer needs but really don't have technical support. So volunteering like a Boys and Girls Club to teach computer skills or to do some IT stuff, that is helpful as well. That shows some initiative. It shows that you're willing to go overboard and so forth. Don't include your hobbies unless they're really applicable. And then professional associations, list student clubs, honor societies, and so forth that you're involved in. So you are correct. So what you want in your resume, again, simple, straightforward, what everybody else has been saying. Can a hiring manager see your main credentials in 10 to 15 seconds? That's it. That's all you get. If you don't pass that muster on the 10 to 15, they're not going to look any further. But if you do, make them curious, they're going to look at that. So keep it simple, bold some, highlight some stuff, make them bold in certain places, and so forth. So you want the critical information to jump off your page. Make sure there's no errors in it. On the length, I have, for students that have no real internship experience, I always tell students to do 1 page. Once you have an internship experience where you can start to expand on your job duties that are relevant to the job that you're going to get, then you can go up to 2 pages. But if you're just starting out and just looking, don't have a lot of internship experience yet, 1 page will work. What you don't want to have happen is see a lot of white space. If they see white space, they say, nah, even if you've got 2 pages but a lot of white space, they're going to think you're just blowing smoke, really. The other thing, have confidence in what you're doing. I know you said to put beginning, intermediate, and advanced. I tend to not put the level on there because if they're interested in it, they will ask you about it to me. So, I mean, if you know Python, I mean, for those that have had me in 3600, I teach Python in there as well. If you've had it and can write some programs in there, you can do that. And then if you find when you're about to interview for a job that they use Python, I would go and freshen up your skills and make sure you're up to date on those. But I typically don't. I mean, I know you say differently, but it's up to you, I think, honestly. The last thing I want to say regarding to this is really find a job while you're in school. And this is important because as a student, when you are a student, your competition is other students. But once you graduate and start to look for a job and are out of school, your competition becomes all the other out of work, IT, cybersecurity, other people out there. So you want to have your competition with other students and not somebody that has 10 to 15 years experience. So I tell students, really focus, try to get the internship early on, try to get the job before you graduate. So anyway, any questions about this? I think it's kind of in line with what Emma and Laura were saying as well.
There's one question in the chat.
Okay.
What would be the difference between a skill and a hobby for computer science?
So a couple things that, and I've been a hiring manager and I've talked to hiring managers recently. So there are 3 things, what did I have? Yeah, there are a few things that you want to be able to do. Employers want to see that you can tinker, okay? This means if you have a Raspberry Pi, go play around with it, create some of your own projects. So by hobbies, this could be like, again, skill would be more technical, like anything that's programming, working with the hardware, that kind of stuff, versus a hobby, which might be, let's say you like skateboarding or something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Skateboarding might not be appropriate on a resume, but if you've created, I don't remember who did this one time. One of my students created he called a pickle. What was it? A pickle controller. He basically created a controller for his Pokemon Go game on a pickle, the lid of a pickle jar. That was cool. And companies want to see that you're tinkering around, doing things in your area. And so that's more of a, I consider it a skill. And I'd list those projects you do on your own. Again, a hiring manager, a good friend of mine, once told me, like, look, I asked him, what do you like to do in your spare time? If you say, I like to go skateboarding, that's not going to buy him a whole lot. But if you say, I like to, work with my Raspberry Pi and see if I can, create some, a crypto system or whatever with, with that kind of stuff, that's what they want. So they want to see that you can tinker. So tinkering in terms of the skill set, the technical skill set is definitely what you want to put on there. Okay, so long answer to a short question. Anything else? Yeah, and skills and hobbies can be both. A lot of times if you just like playing around with stuff that's related to our field, that's a good thing. And companies like seeing that. All right. Okay. Sorry to take that over, but you can take it back. I guess I'll stop
Okay.
there.
Thanks. So now we'll move on to interviewing. Before you interview, you're going to want to look up what the company does, have an understanding of what you're actually interviewing for. A lot of times it'll just be like vague cyber internship, but there's a lot of categories inside of cyber. So you want to know, is this a company that does it all, or are they like a digital forensics and incident response company, or do they just do pen testing? You need to know this before you go, so you know what to highlight when you're talking to the recruiter. You can also look on Glassdoor for what other people say about the interview process. Sometimes people might put questions. I don't know if that's kind of cheating, but you can read what other people have been asked in their interviews at that company. Let's see what else. For me, this was really helpful. Sometimes on the spot, I get a little like nervous and like, So before, when I was doing a ton of interviews last year, I made a document just like every question that they might ask me, and then I wrote out what I would say. So then next time they're like, what's your weakness? And I'm like, I don't know. I was ready. So that's something you can do if you get a little nervous during interviews. And then a lot of companies will like send you these like 90-minute coding tests at home. So a lot of them do it with these websites. One's called LeetCode, one's called HackerRank. I think there's another one, but I can't remember the name. You can have an account on there and go through tons of practice problems. So you should really be doing this before you even have an interview, because sometimes they'll send these before you actually even have an interview. So you'll just get an email and it'll be like, in 3 days, do this assignment. So you can go through, usually companies will let you pick whatever language you want. So just practice in a language you're comfortable with, and then just keep practicing until you get them, because they can actually be really tricky. And then knowing who the interview is going to be with. So once you get the invite, it'll typically the email will be from the person you're going to be interviewing with, but sometimes they'll say you'll be interviewing with this person. So you can go on LinkedIn and look up that person. And if they're like a technical person, you can know to expect more technical types of questions. And if they're like someone who works in HR, you may need to answer more questions about like, what would you tell me about a time where blah, blah, blah. So just looking up who that person is will help you. So in the first round with a recruiter or on the phone, they'll call you at a certain time, and it might be on video too. So big tip is to be like happy to talk to them. Don't be monotone. There are also interviews where they'll have questions just on a screen and you like hit record and answer the question and it gets shipped off and someone watches it later. For those, for me, I did one where it actually lets you watch it back. Sometimes it doesn't let you watch it back. And I realized like I need to pep it up, like be more happy about answering these questions. So maybe if you record yourself answering questions and then watch it back, you can see like maybe you don't sound as put together as you think you sound or something like that, and you can practice more. If you're on video, obviously dress professionally, and the same as before, you need to understand what the company does. And then you want to ask the interview questions too, so it's kind of like a back and forth. It might, if you're not elaborating enough on answers and things, the conversation might fizzle out, and then like you probably won't be called back. And then obviously it can go either way. Behavioral questions, short technical questions, like they'd see I had SQL on my resume and I got asked like 3 times if you needed to delete a row from a table in SQL, how would you do that? And then just say it. I don't know why everyone asks me the exact same one, but you need to be prepared for little questions like that. And then the coding test is also something else that you need to be ready for. And again, like, don't wait until you have the email that you're going to have an interview. Do these things as you're applying. And also apply to lots and lots of things, because even if it's not something you're like totally jazzed about, it can be a good practice interview if you're nervous or you've never really interviewed before. It's just good for practicing. And then I made this list of some questions that I was asked a lot. And obviously you guys will have these slides later, so you can research some of these. Knowing what the top 10 list is, like what's on it. Describing a three-way handshake, make a threat model for XYZ. I was asked a lot like, what's on port 80? What port is Telnet on? Things like this. And then also Linux commands. I had Linux on my resume. And I think, I don't know, obviously we use Linux here, so I think that's something everybody here should be able to put on their resume. So they'd ask me like, what's the Linux command for listing the files or whatever. And then there's situational questions like, for example, maybe you work in IT at a university and one of the computers in the computer lab is infected. What would you do? So those are just some of them. And that was all I have about interviewing. So if anybody else would like to hop in and share any more tips, that would be great.
Sorry, I will have a, can you hear me, guys?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I have a meeting soon, so I may have to leave you in about 5 minutes. Let me just share very quickly about the interview. So I'm sure that other participants will provide you lots of information. My experience, there are 2 things that I wanted to say. One is about prepare for typical questions. So I saw that Kiron actually asked about it. What are the most commonly asked personal questions, generally how to answer? So actually, as Emma pointed out, you could just look it up online, and it is much better, or even better, to have a person who actually interviewed for that particular company or for a similar company, because that gives you a great knowledge about what do they expect you, or what do they expect from you, and what type of answers they expect and how you should answer that. It's really important to ask that in advance. Training to yourself is really important. Again, Emma is right in the sense that just well, sit in front of the mirror or maybe in front of the camera, answer some typical questions, listen to yourself, criticize yourself, correct, and then do it over and over. And then, you know, as much time you have, so I don't know, by the 20th time you will be pretty good at it. That's one thing. Yeah, somebody wants to interrupt. Am I making sense? Yeah. And so there are also, among those questions, there are something that are called, what they call in quotes, textbook questions. And these are something like, well, our company has an office in Montana. If you get the job, would you be happy to relocate there? I don't know, like second day of your employment. And then the textbook answer is yes, because, well, that shows your willingness to cooperate, team player, etc., etc. And, you know, later you may decide not to go to Montana, or maybe nobody will send you there. But these are type of questions to which a certain answer is expected and only one answer is acceptable, you know. So these are kind of, they are thrown, they are sprinkled here and there over the interview. And then, well, I don't know them precisely, but you will have to check for those. These are points I wanted to share. Thanks. I'll stay around for a while, but I will leave you guys in about 5 minutes. Yeah, I guess I give back the microphone to Laura. Sorry, to Emma.
So I can actually add something that I've seen with more of the behavioral interview questions. I think it was mentioned about the weaknesses. Sometimes they will ask you, it's a bit of a trick question. And the way you can kind of respond is revealing one of your weaknesses that you can correct, that you're working on, like on a daily basis, that you know about it. And usually you can add, I use, you know, devices or technical means to keep me on track. Some people have a procrastination problem. I wouldn't admit you've got that kind of a problem, like if you're going for a project manager or some kind of tech role, but there are ways to, you know, kind of help you remind yourself. Maybe your friends can remind you, but don't tell them your deepest, darkest weakness, because they're going to jump on that. But just let them know that you're aware of it and that you're working on it on a daily basis. No weaknesses. Wow. Okay. So the most common question that employers tend to ask is, tell me about yourself. And that is also a good reach for what's called an elevator speech or elevator pitch. Hopefully everybody's kind of heard of those before. That's a very short, no, it's a very short introduction, like when you're talking to a recruiter and they say, well, tell me about yourself. And you want to kind of launch into a couple of topics, tell them about your education, any relevant experience, like internship experience or language experience. You can tell them a couple of your strengths. Maybe you're very organized or you're very good at coding. And then you kind of want to give them a glimpse into the future, what you've got planned as far as right now. Kind of tell them a little bit about that. So if you can focus on those 4 areas, that's really going to help you, because elevator speeches can be all over the place.
Okay, does anybody else have any more questions or anyone else have anything to add?
Are we about done?
I think so. Typically we go to 6:30, but we can go however long if you have extra things you'd like to
I guess wanted to make one comment before I went. So I know we're looking at here at jobs and resumes and so forth, but I also want to make sure everyone knows that there's opportunities for grad school. I'll make that pitch. So we do have opportunities for grad school. Everybody's probably aware. Yeah, we have a grad track program that lets you double dip for hours your senior year that you can also count as in your master's program or PhD program. So we do have a new master's in cybersecurity. We also have a PhD in computer science and engineering, which includes a cybersecurity track. That said, so here's my pitch. That said, we've been working this past year a long time, but to get grants, and it looks like we're receiving several grants from NSA, DoD, and so forth. We also are looking at funding for projects. So if you are interested in pursuing grad school, there might be funding opportunities. I can't guarantee, everyone, but I can say that we are receiving funding. So definitely come talk to me. We can figure out if it's a good match, whatever. But we do have opportunities. I also want to say that if you're a sophomore or junior, we're going to have a scholarship application program that we're going to be a part of from the DoD this November, December. So that's a full ride, just FYI. It's a full ride for 1 or 2 years in exchange for having a guaranteed job when you graduate. So working for the federal government. So lots of benefits on there. So yeah, that information will probably be out November, December. Last year was the first time we did it. But again, there's lots of stuff for grad school. So if you are interested in grad school, yeah, come talk to me. We can see if there's a match. We can figure out what's going on and so forth for some of the projects we're going to work on. So thank you.
Thank you. And also, if you're wanting to apply to something in the federal government, just know that they have kind of a resume format that you're supposed to follow. So I can't remember exactly how it goes, but you can definitely look up. I think they link to it in their job descriptions. But just so you know, like, there are different things you might need to change to your resume for one of those jobs. And then I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I don't know if Kieran can talk now or not. Okay, so Kieran's mic doesn't work. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you guys so much for coming. And yes, Dr. Thompson says the scholarship info will be out late November, early December. And then I'll send these slides in the Discord, and I will put the other links that I mentioned as well.